The silence that grew between us, the music that remained, and the love that changed shape but never truly left. A story of unfinished goodbyes. There was a time I could tell what kind of day Jiyeon had just by how she closed the front door. A heavy thud meant she was tired. A soft click meant she was deep in thought. And when it was neither, when there was no sound at all, no door creak or lock turning, I knew something had changed. She would simply appear in the room, already halfway undressed, already gone in some way I couldn't yet name. I used to believe we were steady. Not passionate, not the kind of couple who laughed too loud in restaurants or whispered secrets over candlelit dinners. But we were real. We had a rhythm, a routine that didn't need to be spoken. Every Sunday morning we walked to the same market. She always got pears. I always forgot the eggs. We shared earbuds on train rides. We had mugs labeled yours and mine, and they were always in the right hands. I used to think that was enough. But maybe nothing steady ever truly lasts. Maybe what feels solid is just waiting to be tested. It started with small things. She began sleeping earlier. No more brushing teeth together or arguing over what to watch before bed. I'd walk into the room and find her already turned away from me, back curved like a comma, like a sentence unfinished. Then, she started leaving the table with food still on her plate. She'd say she was full, but I could hear her stomach grumble later when she thought I was asleep. Once or twice, she left the house without saying goodbye. I would stare at the front door after it shut, wondering if maybe I'd missed her voice or if she'd stopped saying anything at all. I told myself it was stressful. She worked late, she was always good at what she did, the kind of person who people relied on, leaned on. So I didn't ask questions. I figured things would settle, that we'd find our way back to our usual pace. But it didn't stop. Instead, she became distant in the kind of way that feels cruel because it's so quiet. She didn't pick fights. She didn't raise her voice or slam drawers. She just started fading, a little more each day, like someone slowly turning down the volume on a radio you used to listen to together. Then came the red scarf. It was soft, feminine, and definitely not hers. I found it in the backseat of her car when I went to look for my umbrella. She wasn't the floral type. She liked clean, structured things. Monochrome, minimal. But this scarf was warm and young and smelled like something sweet and unfamiliar. I didn't ask. I put it back where I found it, careful not to fold it differently. But that was the moment I stopped pretending not to notice. From then on, I watched. She didn't wear her wedding ring anymore. Her phone screen, once a picture of the two of us at Hyundai Beach, our hair wind-tangled and faces sun-bright, was now black. Just a plain lock screen. She started humming songs I didn't recognize. One day she brought home a different brand of coffee, one I'd never seen her drink before. I knew. I wasn't blind. But the idea of asking her makes it really worse than the silence. As long as I didn't ask, there was still a space where we were okay. As long as I didn't know for sure, maybe she could still choose me. Then her sister called. A fender bender. No injuries, just a minor scare. But she hadn't been alone. The name her sister gave me sounded innocent, almost forgettable. But it stuck to my mind like a burr. I knew then, without even seeing his face, that he was the reason for the songs. The scarf. The silence. I went to the hospital. Not to see her, I couldn't. I sat in the corridor with the vending machine buzzing beside me, the smell of antiseptic strong enough to sting. I waited until I saw him. He didn't notice me. He looked younger, sharper, someone untouched by the weight of shared history. He wore the kind of confidence I had forgotten how to hold. That night, she came home later than usual. She moved through the house like someone borrowing a space, careful not to disturb anything. She showered for a long time. Then she went to bed. I never asked where she had been. I just sat in the dark, hands resting on my knees, listening to the sound of water running behind the walls. 2 days later, I began packing. Not everything, just pieces. A jacket here. A drawer was emptied. A shelf was cleared. I didn't try to hide it. I wanted her to notice. I wanted her to see the empty spaces where my things used to be. I wanted her to say something, but she didn't. She never asked me where I was going, never told me to stay, and that hurt more than if she had screamed. I left her the house, the mugs, the photos on the walls. I even left the lamp she loved in the reading corner. All I took was the piano, the upright one I'd had since college. It was scratched and out of tune, but it was mine before it was ever ours. I moved into a small apartment on the 5th floor of an old building. It faced the street, where cars passed lazily and kids played after school. I set the piano by the window. Played sometimes, mostly at night, mostly for no one. The silence in that apartment was different. Not the suffocating kind. Not the silence that waits for something to break it. Just stillness. a kind of calm that felt earned, even if it was lonely. Then, a few months later, her sister called again. Jian had left the city. I took a job abroad, teaching. She didn't tell anyone until after she was gone. She said she and the man had broken up and it hadn't lasted. She ended it. Her sister said she'd started playing piano again. Bought a second-hand keyboard. I played a piece I had written for her once, a melody I never recorded or named. Just something I played late one night when she couldn't sleep. She had memorized it. Out of everything, our memories, our meals, our laughter, that was what she held on to. In the quiet that followed, life unfolded in slow, unremarkable ways. The apartment grew familiar, its creaks and shadows no longer foreign but rhythmic, predictable. Morning light slid in through the curtains with a kind of reverence, touching everything gently. The wooden floor, the chipped coffee table, and the piano keys left half-pressed from the night before. There were no dramatic turns, no unexpected letters or sudden phone calls. Just time, steady, unblinking, and the slow work of remembering how to live without waiting for someone to come home. Each season passed like a soft tide, leaving behind small reminders. A coat I forgot to throw out. A book she once read, its corner still folded at the chapter where she stopped. Her name still appeared in old message threads I couldn't bring myself to delete. Not because I wanted to reread them, but because the presence of them felt less final than the absence. I kept working, teaching music to children who couldn't yet tell a B from a C but laughed with delight when they managed to play a simple tune. Some days I stayed behind after class, letting the silence stretch between the walls, lingering at the old upright in the corner of the room. I composed bits and pieces of fragments of melody that never became whole songs, just sketches, like how memory works, incomplete but vivid. Her image would surface without warning, in the shape of a stranger's shoulders, in the pause before a familiar note, in the quiet moments right before sleep, when the mind drifts without consent. But it was no longer painful, just distant, like watching a boat disappear over the horizon. You can't see it anymore, but you know it was there. Somewhere along the way, the piano became more than a habit. It became the only language I still trusted. It didn't lie or avoid or change its tone. It didn't drift away. The keys never forgot my touch. They welcomed my grief, absorbed my regrets, and returned them to me softened, arranged into music I couldn't explain. Years passed. Friends moved on, some married, some divorced. I attended a few weddings, sent flowers to one funeral. Occasionally I was invited to gatherings. I always said I might come. Most of the time, I didn't. The plants by the windowsill grew wild. Ivy trailed down the cabinet edges, and a small cactus bloomed a yellow flower one spring, a quiet miracle I hadn't expected. I started cooking more, not because I needed to, but because I liked the warmth that came from a stove lit at dusk. I ate on the balcony sometimes, feet propped up on the railing, the evening sounds of the city a comforting hum. One winter, I was asked to play for a small local theater. Just background music for a modest play, nothing extravagant, but I said yes. I played in the dim glow of footlights, unseen behind the curtain, my hands steady even when my heart wasn't. Last night, an old woman approached me backstage. She didn't say much. She just told me that the melody I played made her remember something she had once tried to forget. Then she thanked me. Her eyes were wet, but her voice was steady. I nodded, unsure of what to say. Later that night, I walked home slower than usual. Snow had begun to fall, soft and scattered, like ash drifting from a quiet fire. I stood outside my apartment building for a long time, watching the flakes gather on the railing. The world felt suspended, not sad, not joyful, just still. One morning, not long after, I received a letter. It was from her. The handwriting was unmistakably neat and unhurried. She hadn't written much. No explanations, no apologies, just a short note and a sheet of music enclosed, scribbled in pencil, incomplete. She had tried to write the piece I had once played for her, the one with no name, the one I never taught anyone else. She hadn't remembered all of it. Gaps showed where the melody faltered, but her memory had preserved enough to reach me. She was still playing. That was all I needed to know. I didn't write back, not because I didn't care, but because the music was good enough. I sat at the piano that night, unfolded the worn sheet, and filled in the missing bars. My hands moved with instinct, not effort. The tune flowed, different yet familiar, reshaped by time, but not lost. And when it was done, I didn't play it again. I folded it neatly, placed it inside the bench where old compositions lived, and left it there, not buried, just kept. Love never disappeared. It only changed forms, moved quietly into the corners of daily life. It became the way I straightened the music books, the care I put into watering plants, the way I listened to the silence not as absence but as presence in another shape. She was no longer a ghost in the room, just a memory tucked into a melody. And when I sat at the piano in the evenings, the notes filled the space between what was lost and what remained. Music didn't need answers. It didn't seek closure. It simply existed, offering a place where everything could belong. The heartbreak, the tenderness, the fragments we carry. I played not for her, not even for myself anymore, but for the space we once shared. For the invisible thread that still hummed softly between notes. For the quiet place where love once lived and still echoes long after the last door has closed.